Hey, how's it going, everyone? So what do you get when you wrap a cardboard box with chicken wire? Give up? Should be pretty obvious. You get a raised bed garden for pennies on the dollar. You know, one of the most common challenges many gardeners face when they first begin to grow is the upfront cost. Now, at its core, gardening is a very inexpensive hobby to begin. I mean, all you need to do is plant some seeds and some viable soil, position it appropriately to the sun, keep it mildly watered, and you're going to have yourself a harvest of whatever it is you grew. But with that being said, there's various reasons why that doesn't always work out. Could be your soil type or condition, lack of nutrients, location, how far your garden is away from the back of your home, for example. Ease of access is also another common concern and a restriction for a lot of folks. You know, getting on your hands and knees, working at the ground level isn't always possible or comfortable, to say the least. So a raised bed is commonly used to bring that garden up to a more workable, comfortable height. There's also certain crops that do better in a raised bed environment, things like potatoes that require a lot of loose soil to continue to grow out many tubers for you to harvest. For all these reasons, a raised bed is often used by many gardeners as a means to begin to grow food. So with that being said, I just wanted to share with you this one simple idea that'll work and get you growing for literally pennies on the dollar. Now, if you recall, if you've been around the channel for some time, you may have seen a video that I made called The Early Beginnings. And I shared with you how I got going on this project here, which was once a typical backyard in distress. And I started by creating raised beds. That's how I mapped out my garden plots and my pathways. And that would have been very expensive and was going to hold me back. But I came up with a solution, and that was very similar to what you see here. I used chicken wire, some 3-foot T-posts, and I constructed the outline of my raised beds. I then lined the inside with cardboard slats. Then I was able to fill the beds with my growing medium and begin growing. And here we are years later, and I have since taken down those raised bed outlines, and they've all become food aisles in my garden. You can see here, we've got a pathway, or an aisle, as I like to call it. And to the left, we've got a hedgerow of fruit trees. So this was once my raised bed garden, and that's how I defined where that row of plants was gonna go. And here we've got the pathway. And then on the right side of this pathway, we've got another row of food and ornamental crops. Once again, this was all a raised bed garden in the beginning. Not only did it help me to begin to grow and to lay out my design, but it also helped me to build soil. As my growing medium began to break down, and I removed the raised bed at a later time, which was extremely easy. It took a matter of a couple hours to remove hundreds of feet of raised bed material because of the way I constructed it. I had literally conditioned the soil beneath and had all this nice, fluffy, humus-like soil to work into the native soil and begin to grow more perennials. But it worked out beautifully, my friends, and to this day you can see that original outline, the design of the garden, which all began with chicken wire and cardboard. And now I'll share with you how you can quickly build one of these raised bed gardens in just a couple minutes. You know, this site probably looks familiar. This is a ridiculous amount of packaging material, if you ask me. But at least it's recyclable, and I'll be putting it in the recycle bin. So we've got our box here. Now you can do this with any size box. So if you want to build a larger raised bed, you could head on down to an appliance store, a big box store, and see if you could get your hands on a larger box. But the easiest way I found to put this together is to simply tuck in the flaps here at the top. And I'm not overly concerned about any pieces of tape that remain. What's going to happen is as you water this bed over time, these pieces of tape are just going to fall off and surface, and you can remove it easily. And now we're going to wrap it with some chicken wire. Believe it or not, this is chicken wire that I used from the original raised bed garden design that I had in my garden over a decade ago, and it's still holding up just fine. A little ratty here and there, but usable. Chicken wire is usable in many ways in the garden. For one, to help to protect your plants from some of the birds, wildlife, or roaming chickens you may have in your garden. All right, so I'm just going to quickly unravel a piece of chicken wire that'll wrap around the entire outside area of the box. And once I identified how much of the chicken wire I need, I can now make my cut. The absolute best way to accomplish this is to use a tool known as tin snips. Cuts right through the chicken wire, just like butter. All right, so now we got our box and our chicken wire. Check out how easy this is. I'm going to start at a corner of the box, and I'm going to conform the chicken wire to bend around that corner. That's going to give me a good starting point. And I'm now just going to work my way around and get the chicken wire taut and flat around the box. Doesn't have to be perfect. And again, I'm just going to bend and define this corner and keep going. And as you can see, I've got the chicken wire basically flush with where the top of the box is. You could leave some extra and actually fold it over for more rigidity, but it's not very necessary. Chicken wire is really an easy material to work with. After you cut it, it can have some sharp points there, so you want to be careful. You can also snag your clothes. Just be careful about that. All right, so we've made a full loop around now. And here where we made our cuts, we got this little tab of metal that we can then just fold over into itself and secure everything. So you don't need any other materials, zip ties or anything like that. And we're going to fold all the way up, even the excess chicken wire here. We're going to tie that together. Okay, so now this is what the bottom looks like. And we're just going to fold this over like wrapping paper. So I'm going to define the creases on each corner. Then I'm just going to fold it in. Then I can just find a few points here at the bottom where I can fold it into itself once again. But my thoughts are, don't overly secure it, because at a later day you could take this apart and reuse this chicken wire material again and again. But we could just flip this over now, and a little touch-up work on the corners, straightening out any pieces that are bent. The main thing is to just kind of pull tight and define all the corners by squeezing the chicken wire. And Bob's your uncle. So now we've got a raised bed garden or planter that you can begin to grow in. That cardboard is going to survive throughout a season, even with all the watering or rain that may come in. And the chicken wire is just going to give it that added rigidity as the cardboard does break down to retain all the contents of the box. Now, when it comes time to filling your raised bed, here's a bonus tip for you to help to save costs on soil. You could turn this into a hidden hugelkultur raised bed garden by throwing in some woody materials, reducing the amount of soil you're going to need to fill this container. And as an added benefit, this woody organic material that you place in the box is going to actually absorb some of the water when you're watering this container or through the rain. It's going to absorb it like a sponge. And then through the hot summer months, the water locked into these woody materials is going to disperse into the soil, helping to reduce your overall watering costs. Now, I recommend using older wood that's already began to break down. Fresh wood has a tendency to tie up some of the nitrogen for the first year. It'll eventually release it. But if you can use more broken down wood pieces, this is actually an old stalk of a tree kale. It makes excellent wood. You see how hollow and porous this woody material is? Those are all good components to hugelkultur bedding. And now you can fill your raised bed with the growing medium of your choice. You could use a bagged outdoor potting mix, some native soil, a combination of the two. But the earlier you get your bed built before you're going to need to use it, you could be adding other things in like leaves, some of your kitchen scraps. And overall, I'd say this has a pretty natural appearance as well. Chicken wire and some brown cardboard doesn't contrast too bad with the garden. So I'm going to actually strike some cuttings in that little raised bed garden. So I'm going to take a few cuttings here off this tree collard plant. It's getting quite tall and bushy. This plant's not even staked up and it was still reaching about 6 feet tall. And you can see here I took my cuttings just above a growth node, which is in the crook of each leaf. And so this is going to push out and flush out new growth from every direction where I take these cuttings. And this is also going to help with airflow and the overall health of the plant. So we'll just strip off the leaves on the side here. Definitely use those for cooking later. And we'll just leave a couple leaves on top for photosynthesis. And we'll bring that down a couple inches into the soil. And that's all there is to it, my friends. It's that easy to begin growing for just pennies on the dollar. Now, if you found this video helpful or entertaining in any way, I sure would appreciate if you smash that thumb button for me. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. New uploads every week, sometimes every day, and I'm always sharing with you all the different things growing on around here. So with that, I want to wish you a great rest of your night. Have a great weekend. Until next time, this is Dan from plantabundance.com. Take care. I'll be talking to you again soon.